everyone, it's Lexi and today I'm going to be sharing with you my top female kick-ass characters. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the first one will have to be Julie and Maddie from Codename Verity, and this is a historical fiction novel that follows two girls and their friendship throughout the war. Julie, who ends up being captured by Nazis in France, and then Maddie, who flies planes for the military, and they had to be very kick butt, can't talk today, especially during this type of the war, because they had a lot of things. They had to prove themselves as women in this novel, and they had to just sacrifice themselves for the greater good of their country, and it was just crazy. Their story is just amazing, and I'm really excited for the prequel that will be coming out in May. So yeah, they are pretty kick-ass if you ask me, just how they had to fly planes and go be spies in Nazi occupied France and getting revenge and all that. So definitely very kick butt. Next is Vianne and Isabel from The Nightingale by Kristin, and this is again another historical fiction novel, but it centers around two sisters and their experiences throughout the war. And although they're very different and with what they do within the war, they still hold a vital part in kind of the home front side of the war, and I think that's really important that we show kind of the female perspective, because war was just not fought on enemy lines, it was fought with it on the home front as well. And Isabel ends up becoming she's very rambunctious, and she ends up becoming a spy, I guess you could say, for the French resistance, and she helps Allied pilots who end up who crash land into France, get back into Spain. And then Vianne has a more quiet side, I guess, to the war, and she has to open her home to a Nazi, and just kind of her involvement in there and the sacrifices that she made. I think especially the World War II historical fiction stories are especially important because they have some non-fiction aspects to them. And so kind of continuing on with this historical theme, I also have Caroline from Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly, and this is actually a real person who was very active in World War II. So she kind of had a very socialite life in New York, and when the war broke out, she made it her duty to kind of send care packages to the orphans in France. And then later on, after the war, she kind of becomes host for what they were called the Rabbits, which were women who were tested on at Ravensbrück during they had medical things done, wood inserted, and they were given all these diseases. So she sponsored to have the survivors come and get proper health care that they needed and the medical treatment. And I think that's very kick-ass of her. She was actually a real person. She opened up her home to these women, and I just think that's very incredible. And I think it's an unknown story that I've never really heard about until I read the book, and then I read the author note and found out that she based the whole story around the actual person of Caroline and her involvement in the war. So I think it's one of the kind of not really talked about aspects of the war, and she was pretty kick butt if you ask me. Next, of course, I think I have the original kick-ass character, and that will always have to be Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter series. And of course, she kind of shows us girls that you can be smart and take kick-ass and take names, and still you don't have to sacrifice your femininity, and it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that's really important. I love how J.K. Rowling kind of showed us that girls can be fighters too, and she's a really good role model in that aspect. Next, I have Leah from the Remnant Chronicles, and this is a story about a girl who is a princess and she's getting forced into a marriage that she doesn't want to, so she ends up running away with her best friend, and the prince and an assassin are sent out after her. And what I really like about Leah is she's very strong. She's very Hermione. She's kind of Hermione-like, where she's very smart and she kind of has to grow into the leadership role and she has to make very hard decisions. But she's always a step ahead of everyone else, and she's not afraid to sacrifice herself for the greater good of her country or her friends. And she is just really tough as nails, and I really enjoyed kind of reading from her perspective. Like, she's probably one of my favorite characters of all time. Next, I have Kelsey from the Queen of the Tearling trilogy by Erika Johansen. And Kelsey, again, reminds me of Hermione in a sense that she's very smart, and she may not be the best fighter, but she uses her intelligence as a kind of a weapon itself. And I think that's really important because a lot of the characters we see in fantasy are like the Selena Sardothians, like they're very good fighters, and I think it's important to show that women can use their brains as well as like a tool. So I think she's really like, I really like her because once she makes up her mind, she sticks to it and she's not afraid to make any sacrifices for her country, and she's willing to sacrifice herself for the greater good. And I don't know, this is probably one of my all-time favorite trilogies. I finished the last book that came out, I think in December or November. I think I read it in December, and I really want to reread it again because that's how much I loved it. And lastly, I have Jane Rizzoli from the Rizzoli Isles series by Tess Gerritsen. And what I like about Rizzoli is that she is a detective in a male like dominant profession, and she just kind of has to prove herself extra hard, like extra because of the kind of the male dominance, like this is the guys club attitude. So she really has to like be like, you know what, I deserve to be here. And I really like that, like she is really kick butt, you don't want to mess with her. And yeah, so that's it guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite kick-ass female characters are. And yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!